Hello, everybody. This is Bigfoot from Lexington, Kentucky. I got Gary on the other end. He's got some information that will blow you away. It goes back to the service time, government cover up. Pretty interesting. Some of the stuff that we knew happens and known. But I tell you what, right here's the facts. Gary, introduce yourself.
Hello there, everybody. My name's Gary, and I had served in the Marine Corps back in '69 to '73, and I came back stateside and was stationed at Camp Lejeune down in North Carolina, back in a butthole at a base called Courthouse Bay. There was a big swamp and everything there. And the one night, a buddy of mine, he was from Missouri, the show me state. Well, he's a believer after this happened. He's like 6'3", a lot longer legs than mine.
Wow.
And we had gone to the little snack bar they had set up there. We're walking back, and from being overseas, you get that spidey sense that you're being watched.
Right.
And the hair on my arms and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I said to him, I said, Steve, I said, on the count of three, I said, we're going to haul it back to the barracks. I hit one and took off like a jackrabbit. Well, you know what it sounds like when there's kids running at the pool on a patio, bare feet on concrete?
Right.
That's what we heard directly behind us. We get almost back to the barracks, and I turned around, and they had an Amtrak sitting off to the side as an ornament, and this thing peeked around the back of it. And he was, when he peeked around, he still had like a foot to go before he was over the top of it. And we get into the barracks, and I mean, we're all, and I'm embarrassed to say, we're Marines, and we were scared shitless.
Wow.
We told the staff, it was a Bigfoot.
Wow.
And we told the staff duty what happened, because, I mean, he, like I said, he's from Missouri. He was just babbling. He couldn't believe what we saw. So they called the MPs and they called the officer of the day, and they had two separate MP vehicles take us over to the main side hospital and put us in two separate rooms at each different ends of the hallway. And I didn't believe in truth serum, but that's what they gave us. And they asked us a bunch of questions about what we saw and everything.
Wow.
And they put us back in the vehicles and took us back to the barracks. And when we get back, there was a platoon of MPs all over the place with spotlights and their sidearms drawn. And the officer today says to us, he says, oh, they gave us another shot before they left us go into the barracks. The officer today says to us, he said, you open your mouth about this. He said, they won't find you because the bay is right behind your barracks.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So then I had gone on leave about a month after that. And I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I live in Barberville, Kentucky. Not too far from you, Chris.
Right.
And my mom, as soon as I get in the house, she says, my God, are you okay? I saw what happened. I said, what do you mean? They had it on the local TV news stations up there in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
But yet they injected us and told us to keep our mouths shut. Well, then I was a sniper overseas, but when I come back, they put me in the mess hall because I wanted to be a cook. And they sent me to chef school. Well, the one day I'm in the mess hall getting ready to prepare the meals for the officers because I had charge of the officers' mess. And I see the one corporal, he's got a big box of old fruit, takes it out, crosses the road behind the mess hall and dumps it just inside the tree line. I said to him, I said, Corporal Sample, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm feeding my friend. He knew it was there and didn't say a damn thing to anybody.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'm getting goosebumps now just telling you about this because it's taken me over 40 plus years to be able to tell somebody without being called an idiot, a psycho, or whatever.
Right, right.
But after I got out of service, I went up to Edinburgh, PA. It was just outside of Erie, and they had a couple little hidden ponds and stuff there. And I went to go fishing one day, and I smelled it. It's like, well, I'm not fishing here, and I got back into my vehicle and drove back to the house. That was my very first experience. The next one was, oh hell, years later.
Well,
I lived in
let's
I
stop
lived in
for a second. And see,
uh-huh.
this is what I try to tell people about the government. So the government knows about Bigfoot. We always known about that. I
Yes, sir.
always said that they have the bodies, or they know where they live, and they protect the forest and say it's a sanctuary or whatever they want to call it. But the government covers everything up, whether it's Bigfoot, cryptids, UFOs, especially. 1954,
Uh-huh.
Roosevelt met with the aliens in a hangar and signed a treaty with them. That was released on TV. His granddaughter came forward and said it was true. And just like they gave you a shot of truth serum to see if you're going to lie.
Right.
Then they made a threat to you to keep your mouth shut or else.
Right.
So this is prime example. After 40 plus years, now you're able to come out of the box and just really speak about it.
Right.
And that's amazing. It really is. And now you're saying you have another encounter?
Yes, I did. I was
Unbelievable.
I was living in Corbin, Kentucky. It's an
Yeah, that's
NX.
not too far
It's
for
20.
me.
It's 20 miles down from where we live, where I'm living at now. And they had just painted our apartment outside where I lived at. And one night there had been some strange stuff going on in the wood line right directly behind the apartments because it was the Daniel Boone National Forest. I lived there. I was
Right.
there. And I went to close my curtain and I see these fingerprints on the upper part of the window. And I put my hand up and put my fingers in the fingerprints, and they were about roughly 3 inches across, bigger
Wow.
than my fingers. I went and got my next door neighbor and his son. Now he's like 6'2", 6'3", and his boy is about same height, maybe an inch or two taller. He stood out there and put his hand up to try to touch the fingerprints from the outside. He was about 6 inches too short. He couldn't reach them. So his son, the same one that was with him, the one night we're over his place and we're having some kind of birthday party or whatever, some get together, and twice we heard like a pounding on the outside of his apartment because he lived directly across the street from me. So after the second time, a bunch of us get lights, and we go down in the path right behind the place,
Right.
and that's the first time I've seen arches that were I actually figured out what they were from because I had seen them as a kid because I hunted in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Never thought anything about them. That was the farthest thing from my mind. Well, we're walking through there and we get about 10, maybe 15 yards from the edge of the wood line to go back up into the apartment. We turn the light out. Now I'm in the middle of six guys. All of a sudden I heard a crash, a thud. We turned the light on. There's a not a little rock, a gooner laying right behind the guy with the flashlight. He shines the flashlight in the woods, and all you seen was shoulders going back into the bush.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and again, there's the hair on my arms. It's standing up. So, okay, that was that one. There was a one of the younger kids. She went missing, and they lived in the apartment right next door to me. She had run away, and I figured, well, I'll sit out behind the apartment and watch in case she tries to come back in, sneak back in. That way I can notify her mom that she's okay. I'm sitting there in a chair and I hear this in the woods. I'm like, oh, hell no. There's 5 different tones of whistling
Wow.
in that woods. Again, this is Daniel Boone National Forest. Well, that was the second time. Third time, my wife, her ex-husband, which I didn't find out till about 2 weeks before this episode happened. Her son came and he was at the party when we heard the thumping on the apartment. He pulls up at my place. He says, "I want you to come up to my house." He said, "Something. I want somebody to meet you." It was his dad, which is my wife's ex-husband. He was he. I guess you'd call him a researcher. He followed him for years because
Right.
years before they had lived in the apartment where the banging was on the side of the apartment.
Wow.
And my wife even said, yeah, they would stand there and look in the window and look at the TV.
That's crazy.
And then he told his dad told me that while they lived there, the one night they were out cooking hot dogs and stuff, and there was stones thrown at their van while they're outside. And then when he would cut their grass once in a while, one would ding a rock off his back or off the mower. But the one night he used to come over to my place and we'd sit there and we'd listen to him. You could hear him busting limbs and whatever, doing their daily routine, whatever that is for them. So he was a meat cutter at Save-A-Lot.
Right.
And he bought some outdated hot dogs. And this blew my mind when this happened. We took these hot dogs down into the woods, and his path was only 20 yards from my front door that led down into the national forest. But there was a couple real small arches about 10, 15 yards off when you first go into the woods.
Right.
He puts the hot dogs out. Now this is like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. We were the only 2 idiots out that time in the morning. And we put the hot dogs out. Now I had a 300 Win Mag with a scope.
Oh, good
And I also had a 32, and I left him carry the 32, and I kept the Win Mag with me. Well, he puts the hot dogs out, and he gets behind me and starts walking out of the woods. I'm backing out. And as plain as day, as we're talking here, Chris, twice I heard him say, "Thank you. Thank you." Just like that.
Wow.
Nobody else out, nobody in the woods, just him and I. And now, of course, the big guy. All right, so we hauled it back to my van and we sat in there and we were speechless for about 10 minutes after that. Then right after that, the neighbor's son, who's like 6'2", 6'3", we're sitting out behind his place, which is the caddy corner across the street where my my wife lived at, we had a little bonfire going, and we had coffee and stuff. Well, you know how guys are. You drink coffee, you sit for, you gotta do what you gotta do. Well,
Right.
we'd walk away and do what we had to do and come back and sit. Well, I'm sitting in the chair with my pistol, and there was a black dog was laying underneath his chair, curled up in a ball, but she kept her head up, kept looking at the woods. Didn't growl, didn't give us any indication that there was something there that could possibly hurt us. Well, I started to nod out a little bit. All of a sudden, and I'm going to quote him word for word, I hear, "Oh shit." He runs, gets up, kicks the chair out. The dog runs past. He almost knocks me over. This one got up from behind a bush and ran lengthwise inside the fence line and down into the national forest. It was
Wow.
sitting there all the while we were at this bonfire. It was crouched down.
How big was it?
My estimation about 8.5 foot, and it was like a moss colored, almost. It looked almost like a ghillie suit, but there's nobody that big
Right.
living there. Okay, that was, let's see, one, two. That was, I think, the third time. Then the same guy that ran and almost knocked me over. I mean, the rest of that night we sat inside his empty room and watched him down in the national forest, going back and forth and carrying stuff and making all kinds of noise. I think we counted like 6 of them, all different sizes. But he come over to my place one day. He said, "You want to go hunting?" I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." Well, first of all, I didn't have a hunting license, but you're right there at the end of the wood line, easy to get rid of a deer, you know.
Right.
So it's him, his cousin, and his brother who lived right up the street from me, but across the street from him. So I take his brother with me, and we go down in and sit just off of his path. And my buddy Daniel and his cousin go up around the hill, and all of a sudden, Daniel's brother Robert, he's sitting on the ground, he freezes. And I mean, his stare is fixed right on something. And real quiet, because we were hunting deer, I said to him, I said, "Robert, what's wrong?" He didn't move. I said it again. He still didn't move. So I put the scope up. And when I brought the scope up, I had the crosshairs dead center in this thing's chest. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh hell. I had to raise the rifle up, and when I did, I seen the face.
What did it look like?
Uh, the skin was like, I would say, like a Native American, how it was wrinkled and weather beaten.
Right.
You know, they're all like, they got the lines and stuff, and the nose wasn't as big as, I'll say, an African American, but it was shaped almost like that, but a little smaller. The eyes were as human could be, and the teeth were over giant sized human teeth. And I'm looking at this thing through the scope, and it was one of those, I know that you know that I know that you know, and we're looking at each other. I took my finger off the trigger. When I seen that thing's face, Chris, I had a feeling of calm come over me. Not fear, calm. Apparently, he was doing a telepathic thing, like
Uh-huh.
either "please don't hurt me" or "I'm not going to hurt you," whatever. But it was a mutual admiration between the two of us. So I kept looking, and all of a sudden, it took one step and it was gone. So we started, Robert and I got up to leave there. and I'm looking over and I see a stand of white birch trees. And what was strange was all the white birch trees were leaned over, pushed over. No other trees. No other trees, just the white birch trees. And after that, while I lived there, every night, well, maybe later, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, they go behind my place and pound on the wall to let me know it's like, okay, you can go to sleep now. I'm like, my buddy who put the hot dogs out said that he considered it a curse. But the more I thought about it, it's like, no, I think it's a gift that we see them all the time. And every time I see these different things come on there, well, you need to shoot it. You need to do this. You need to do that. My comment is, no, leave them the hell alone. They just want to live.
Well,
and then of course I'll get the radicals. Oh, you're some kind of idiot. This, you could be famous. This, that, and the other thing. But the day that I had that one in the scope, I'm thinking to myself, and this was after I was out of the woods, and I had told my buddy Daniel about it. I said, now here's a question for you. If I would have shot that, what could I have been charged with? I know poaching because I didn't have a license. But could I have been charged with murder?
yeah, some states have it on the books if you kill
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
And I've taken notice since that happened that, like in the spring, along Cumberland Lake and Laurel Lake, they will put signs on the beaches. Beware of Bigfoot. If you see one, don't make any contact with it. Just back away and get out of there.
Really?
And they are state signs.
That's incredible.
Kentucky Department of Wildlife, that kind of thing. They even have the signs, Chris, in Cumberland State, Cumberland Falls. When you're going towards not Kiwi, but I forget what the next town down below that is. They have it on the little beach down there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, But yeah, every time I see these comments where, oh, they need the only time they're going to have proof is if they shoot one. No, they've already got one or two or whatever.
Yeah, they already got the DNA evidence. They
And
already
the only reason they want it to see how they can use it for a military purpose.
Well, like I said earlier, and I think truly if you would have shot that Bigfoot right then and there, before you know it, the military would have showed up, recovered the body, and take off and give you a lecture what's going to happen to you. Prime example, the forest fires out west. Well, I think it was last year.
Yeah.
How bad they were. The firemen recovered a large body. It was Bigfoot, and most of his hair was burnt off, and they were treating it.
Yeah.
The government came in and took the body away. And they told the firemen never speak about this. Well, they did. A lot of people didn't believe them.
Right.
But today with technology, cell phones, cameras, trail cams, we actually get the pictures and stuff, and we get the hair, and and now they can get DNA out of streams and ponds and lakes.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called, what type of DNA. But it comes back 98% human and 2% unknown primate.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know is that between us and the chipmunks, not the chimpanzee, is only 2% difference from humans.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
One of my old phones before I moved up here to Barberville, I had pictures of the fingerprints. I had pictures of the arches, and some people come in to help us clean the place out because we were going to put down new flooring and everything. The kids stole my phone.
oh wow.
And of all things, they live cat corner across the street from me now. I'm like, you little bastard, I want my phone back. But oh well. But then there was another time I was going from my place to Robert's place. This is at Christmas. They wanted me to come over and have some food and stuff with them. And I left my pistol in the house. And as I'm going across the street, there's one crosses between the two apartment buildings across the street from me. This thing was jet black.
Oh
And it
wow.
was doing a walk like the one in the Gimlin film.
Right.
And he looked at me, and the reason I say he was close enough that you could see it was a male.
Right.
It gave out a growl. Now, the apartment was only like maybe 20 feet across, 25, 30 feet across. I felt the growl in my
Wow.
chest, and I made Jesse Owens look sick going to Robert's place. I just went in there and I said, beer, lots of it, quick. And he knew he knew what happened. It's like, but yeah, but the one I had in the scope, this thing was gray, and again, like I said, it was a he, because at that distance with a 3 to 9 variable scope, you can pick out a gnat crawling up on a dog,
Right.
you know. And it's like, my God. And then, like I said, I didn't feel scared. I felt calm. Which again, it amazes me how people can say, well, they would do this or they would do that. They would, no, you wouldn't. I mean, I don't profess to be an expert. There is no such thing as an expert when it comes to these things. I don't care if you got a PhD or whatever. There is no way one person could say they're an expert on them because there's too many variables that, again, like you were saying, that 2% unknown, whatever, until they can find that 2% and figure out what it is, nobody is going to know what they're made of.
Oh, and that's the problem. They have the evidence, and there was a park ranger 4 years ago that collected scat,
Uh-huh.
collected hair samples, and went and turned it in. And as soon as he turned it in, right in front of him, the guy turned around, put it in the trash can,
Yep.
said thank you,
Uh-huh.
and he was like, "What are you doing? I want that analyzed." It is. We'll take care of it.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? They
Yeah,
already know.
exactly. Exactly. But I mean,
So
on those pictures, I even got a picture of, like you said, scat between those two apartment buildings. That was on that phone. So it's like, okay, what do I do? I just kept it stored up here. You know, it was put it in the file.
well, when I was on the police department working for county, I told the officers if I ever saw one, I would take my car and run off the side of the road and hit it. But thinking about that today compared to 15 years ago, there's like you said, it's a live human let's not say human, but it's a live creature.
Right.
And I don't want to live with the guilty conscience if it looks human.
Uh-huh.
So, and I swore to it. I would wreck my car running over one to prove it.
Yeah.
But, watching the TV shows, reading the articles, and talking to the investigators and researchers, once you get a body, it's gone.
Yeah.
And I talked to a lady from Canada, and she's some type of Indian from a tribe up there. And when she was 9 years old, her dad, her uncle, brothers, and cousin brought a Bigfoot home and laid it on the front porch. And it freaked her out. She started crying. She couldn't look at the face. She said the chest was massive, the feet were huge. And I said, "What they do? Kill it?" And she said, "Well, there's no blood anywhere." And it was gray and white. So they thought it died of natural causes. And she asked her dad, "What are you going to do with it?" And dad said that he's the protector of the woods and we're going to give him the proper burial for respect. And they buried it.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't know where, but, to this day, she still has nightmares because of it.
Oh yeah. Well, there was another episode happened too before I met my wife that her ex-husband was telling me same place, right about 3-4 miles from where the apartments were that I lived at. He was driving home the one night because he worked at David's Steakhouse. He was a meat cutter in their kitchen, and they had the road blocked off. He said there was cops there was game wardens there, whatnot, and they had like the crime scene tape. And he knew one of the cops, and he said to the cop, he said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, they found a bear back in there with its head ripped off."
Oh, wow.
When he told me that, I'm like, "Holy hell!" He said, "Yeah." He said they tried to say that it got in a fight with another bear. No, it didn't.
No.
No, and then
Another bear wouldn't do that.
no, it would be all shredded up, or there'd be chunks
Right.
missing out of it and everything else. I mean, there was a time too. My wife, she works at Speedway. Well, she did work at Speedway. I'd have the younger boy at the house, and like on a weekend, excuse me, I'd take him for a ride just to get out of the house. Take him like to the flea market or whatever. We pulled into the picnic area by the boat ramp, and for some reason, I got out of the truck and I walked over. I looked down the bank and I see this thing laying on the bank, and it had hair on it. I thought, what the hell? I looked real close at it. It was a big hog, about 350, 400 pound hog.
Oh, wow.
I thought, well, damn, there's no pig farms around here. Well, the guy that basically polices the area for him over there, he was parked there, and I walked over and said to him, I said, "Hey," I said, "This is going to sound nuts." I said, "But there's a hog laying down there over the bank." He said, "Where?" I said, "Right over there where I'm parked at." So we go over, and he said, "Oh, hell." He said they dropped another one off to feed him.
What?
Yeah. Somebody takes a hog and drops it over the edge of the bank, just lets it roll down, and then Bigfoot will come out and take the hog.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean about 350, 400 pound hog. So
That's
it's,
crazy.
and then like over the years since I had these experiences, I was thinking back to when I first started hunting with my dad back in Pennsylvania. we'd hunt up in Pike County, up in what they call the Big Woods of Pennsylvania, a place called Lord's Valley. And I remember back seeing arches and X's and this and that. And knowing what I know now, it's a good thing I wasn't a stupid kid and went walking through those things.
Huh.
But every year, as sure as we're sitting here, there's always a hunter that disappears in Pike County, Pennsylvania, in Lord's Valley. They don't find him. They don't find his rifle. They don't find nothing. He just up and disappears.
Well, same thing in the Appalachian Mountains and Trails. Same thing with the Alaskan Triangle.
Uh-huh.
You know, people go missing. They don't find clothing, tents, guns,
Yeah.
horns, or nothing. They disappear.
And it's sometimes I wonder too, when you see these reports of the bright lights in the sky. Right after that, boom, there's a sighting. Boom, there's another sighting. I'm wondering if there isn't some kind of connection between Bigfoot and extraterrestrial.
You know, there's some people say no, and there's some people that says yes. Some people say they turn into orbs. Some people say they cloak themselves. I heard about portals, and it's just like every part of the country that I have talked to thus far has given me a different outlook and a different experience encounter. I don't know. I just don't know. I cannot answer that.
That's why I say there is no such thing as an expert when it comes to these things. Because you and I both know the government's got one or two or got a few of them.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
they're not saying nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just to let us ponder. Could it be? Couldn't it be? That kind of thing.
I believe that. Like I told you in the beginning of the show, I believe about the UFOs the government has.
Oh, I've seen some of them too.
I think they're reverse technology on them.
Oh yeah.
Look at Hitler trying to make a UFO, and he made one successfully, and it flew.
Yeah.
They got footage of it,
Oh
but
yeah.
they never could find the UFO
Yeah.
or the saucer.
Well, I used to have a DVD. I had picked it up at Walmart. And the only reason I picked it up because I like military history, but it had a picture of Bigfoot on this DVD cover. It was a two series DVD. And the one about Bigfoot, this guy, I want to say he was from Oregon, somewhere out there. But he had found footprints. And he went to cast them and whatnot. But this intrigued him that he followed the migration patterns of the Bigfoot. Took him all the way up into Alaska. And for some reason or other, he says he kind of thinks the reason we don't find the bodies is when they migrate, they take them with them, and they got crevices in the ice. They throw them in the crevices, and then when the ice starts thawing, it shifts. So what it does, it basically crushes them, and then all that stuff goes into the ocean.
Huh. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. But I mean, this guy, he talked his wife into going with him. He had been a wildlife photographer, and this was, I want to say, like 1949, 1950 that he was doing this, or maybe a little bit later, because he started this whole thing in a Volkswagen. And in this DVD, it shows him going through the big redwoods. You know how they cut the things through the trees, and it goes through that and whatnot.
Right.
But he stopped at a place in Alaska. I want to say, yeah, it's Alaska. And of course, there's license plates from everybody that ever went there. You know, different states, whatnot. But there was a sign that said "Last chance to meet Bigfoot" on the outside of the building.
Wow.
And because he was trying to follow the migration pattern, usually, you know, and this is his words, he said, usually people think that's a joke. But knowing what he knows, or what he knew, he's probably dead by now, that it's not a joke. And how when he was there, and it happened to be springtime when he finally got there. He's found a lake. It had a lot of, what do they call the wood, driftwood that washed up on the shore,
Right.
and it was I guess we call them cattails that are
Right.
along ponds and stuff. He sat in this pile of driftwood, and he watched a big one and a little one off to the side of this little inlet, pulling stuff out of the water and eating it. Plants out of the water and eating it. And I wish I could have kept that DVD, but I had gotten divorced, and then of course that was left there. But I mean, it was
Right.
amazing. It was amazing.
That's awesome. That really is. You
But
know,
it really makes you wonder. You know how they say there's like the 8 wonders of the world or whatever.
right.
I'm going to say there's 9. Oh, there's more than that, but there's 9, and Bigfoot is one of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, Gary, it's been nice to have you on the show. I'll have you anytime that you ever want to come back. It's been really nice. From Grizzly out of Lexington, Kentucky, from Gary from Kentucky. Unbelievable the encounters Gary has had over the years. Unbelievable. I greatly appreciate Gary being a guest on the Bigfoot and Grizzly show. I really do. I want to thank him personally once again. I learned a lot. Hopefully, the guest out there has more questions that's come out. But Gary, thank you so much. And I want you to have a wonderful afternoon. And once again, thank you, sir.
Well, it's been a pleasure.